advise, again, I don't have to write it, so for my safety. So I give them this at the beginning, and they open it up and they can write whatever I'm advising.
Oh, you said that.
Yes, and they can track what they're doing. So I ask them to kind of track your diet and track how you're feeling, and if you have any questions, to write it down, so that when they come back, we can look at it and we can see, well, a couple of days I wasn't feeling so well, and I felt like it was. I all of a sudden I was constipated for a couple of days, and there was a lot of gas, and then it was okay again, and so then we can go back and maybe track and see what happened and what was going on and why they ended up having that constipation or gas. So this is what I let them go home with. Yeah, it's just a small little journal.
Do you get those in India?
No, I get them at the dollar store. Yeah, I get them at the dollar store, but I look for cute ones, nice little recycled paper or something. So
that's a really nice.
Yeah. So it's fun because, and if I advise them to get any of the formulas, they write it down and they have it with them.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's not, I didn't write it, they did, and so they just kind of take notes and they take it home with them and they have something with them. But again, if you have the licensing, you can do that. You can write it and give it, but for the most part, for the rest of us, we can't. And
so, am I okay? So I can write stuff down.
Yep.
Yeah.
She's in Rhode Island. She's one.
Yes, you are. And in Rhode Island, sometimes I do. Yeah, if I'm there, if I'm in Newport, I do.
I don't know the forms for them that I wanted.
No.
One client the other day said, "Tell me everything that I'm going to have to do." I said, "No." And it gave me the idea. I said, "You'll be alone." She said, "No, I like to know where I'm going." So it gave me the idea. I'm going to work up like a dinacharya list that has check boxes, so that they can see all the things that could be done, and then else, because I negotiate with my clients too. So I'll say, "Well, this and this is is going to be helpful to you. Let's talk about which ones you think you could do, and then have them maybe check the ones that they're going to do, but then the other ones that they're not going to do are there, so they can see them that maybe down the road. I don't know, for the work.
There's so many wonderful things to do, and if you guys want to share, your files and stuff with each other, you could set up a Google Docs thing or whatever. Because that can be a wonderful thing. You go to somebody, it's like, wow, I really like the way that they've written this out, and if it makes it easier for our clients, that's the whole goal, right? So
yeah, because I keep redoing it. I would love to see what other
we could set something like that up.
That'd be great.
Yeah. Who's we?
Sometimes you don't have to reinvent the wheel. I used to follow intake forms. So I print off a line. It's got so much information there. Then anything else I need, I just ask.
Yeah, no, you do have that. But I found even since I did those that there's some really nice things.
Yeah.
The one that I use is one that I got offline, and I'm going to send you this. And it's not mine, but it is available free. It's the Ayurvedic Yogi consultation form. And the reason I like this is because the person who made it, he did a really good job in sort of formatting the questions in a really nice flow. And also he's put in, for some things, he's put in options. So instead of, waiting for them to say it, or if you have to continuously write it down, you can just check it or circle it. And for instance, sometimes you forget to ask them all the symptoms. So it's in a very nice organized order. So this is kind of the order what I want you guys to put your cases in. If it's an old case, then you may not have all the information, that's okay. But if it's a new case that you're going to see from now on, any cases that you get, and you want to discuss it, then I find this a really efficient format and it's completely, again, with all of the information that you would go classically, you would do the Dashavida Pariksha and Ashavida Pariksha, all of it is there. Sometimes it's not necessarily in the exact same order, but they haven't omitted anything. They've put in everything that we would do. Same, again, Panchanidana is also in there. But I like the order and the flow of this. I find it very easy to go through this form with a client and be able to cover all the bases. And it has the psychology part as well. It has the immunity part as well. It has a big section for the diet and digestive health. And looking, and especially for women, they have the reproductive health. And then you have your examination parts. And anything else that if they offer or volunteer other information that doesn't fit into this thing, I just have wherever there's space, I'll write it in to make a note of that as well. So I really like this format. I found it to be working out even better than the ones that I used to use before. So
We'll send you that.
yeah, we'll send you that.
Is there a DPK questionnaire?
No, and that's a great thing because it's a good thing you asked that. I usually don't ask my clients to do the questionnaire beforehand. And maybe it's because yeah, there is a lot of years of experience that I don't need them to give me that information before. That is also there, but I find that sometimes they create a lot of bias in what they're giving you, and that can be conflicting to what you are seeing or what information you're gaining at the time of consultation. So it's probably just better to stick with what your skills are and what you have been trained to do to look for. And especially in this component now, we're giving you even more specific information to look for. So all those lists that you've gotten as what are the premonitory signs? What are the signs that happen before that? What are the signs that you expect in every stage of samprapti? You now have these long lists. You don't necessarily need to memorize or have all of that in your head because it can get confusing. But at least you should know what are the signs and symptoms of ama and what are the signs and symptoms of sama doshas. So that when you see that, it immediately clicks, yes, ama is there and ama is there with this dosha. So that automatically starts to happen. Or if you find that they're mentioning certain signs and symptoms like that, then you start probing for more information as to why it may have progressed to that. So that's we're in this training. The whole point of doing the training in this manner is that we're giving you even more skills so that you know exactly what to look for. When someone comes in with a complaint, from the complaint onwards, it should become even more efficient and faster for you to figure out what is happening. Before you didn't know about the nidanas and the causative factors and the premonitory signs and symptoms of grahani. But now after all of this, if someone comes in and you kind of have the idea, or they'll come and tell you, oh, I have IBS or I have Crohn's disease. But you want to figure out where in the stage of grahani they're at, how chronic it is, and what may be the most appropriate. What caused it in the first place? It's easy for someone to come in and say, oh, I have IBS, or I have celiac disease and I've had it for years. And they come in and they tell you their diagnosis. But you also need to figure out why that happened, because if we just go with that diagnosis and then we start our intervention, we're not really looking at negating the cause. Remember, the first thing we need to do is negate the cause and what caused it. And sometimes the whole point of going through the form is to figure out why that happened. If you're giving takra and the cause is still there, the takra won't work. So that's, again, the reason why we need to figure that out. Okay, I'm trying to find my golden case here. Yeah, there she is. Okay, so I'm going to share with you, and I don't have all of her information because well, as I mentioned to you yesterday, when she came in, she basically called herself the poster child for GERD and IBS. So she's a person who's now, a woman who's now going through menopause. She's had multiple health issues, but the major complaint or issue that she wanted to work on was the fact that she has GERD and IBS, and she's had it for over 10 years. So yeah, she's had it for over 10 years. She also has hypothyroidism, and let's see, what else did she have? Yeah, she was getting the hot flashes, and she was getting hot flashes and no sweating, and no real history of any other too much issues with her reproductive health, other than she was taking various types of contraception over the years. Okay, so her main complaint was the fact that she had GERD and IBS, and so the number of times she would end up going in a day would be somewhere around 10 to 12. She got used to. I asked her, so how does that work? And she's a corporate. She's an executive. She works in Manhattan. Lives a very, very fast-paced lifestyle. Has to wake up very early in the morning to commute for over an hour to get to work, and then be in Manhattan in that environment itself. Most of you know how fast-paced it is. Then finish work at around 6 or 7, and travel again for another hour, hour and a half to get home. And by the time she gets home, she's really exhausted, and she just has some little thing, and then goes to sleep. So I asked her, how are you managing with being at work and having to go these many times in the day? And she said, well, I kind of moved my desk closer to the bathroom, and I don't really think about it anymore. But it's kind of normal for me to have to go to the bathroom, or know that if I'm in a meeting that I need to make sure that if it's over an hour, or if it's over a certain period of time, that I have a break and I can go. But it's not a big deal. And if I need to tell someone that I'm going to probably be stepping out in between, that's also not a big deal. So she got used to it. This was really part of her life now, that she like you said, they identify themselves. This is what I am, and this is my name. So this was her situation. Her breakfast and the funny thing is, her diet was fairly healthy. She had a fairly good, healthy diet. And she said in the beginning, it wasn't like that at all. In the beginning, it was, she ate when she had time. She skipped meals. It was very irregular. She had changed many jobs. She had a very stressful situation in her life. She was in 2 marriages, and she had 2 divorces. She had a lot of emotional issues that she needed to deal with. And she didn't really talk so much about that, but as I look back upon it, that was one of the major factors in contributing to her getting this disease, is the fact that it did kind of start with all of the life issues that was happening, that she was dealing with a lot of stress. It was a lot of stress, going through a divorce, a lot of anger. And she said this, she said that I had a lot of anger, and I didn't know what to do with that anger. So she was seeing a psychologist, and she was talking through it. Sometimes, like as we see, sometimes talking through it doesn't really help it, because sometimes when you talk about it, you end up getting more angry. Again, you may have calmed it down, but then you talk about it, and and you just really ignite that anger all the more, and then you have to calm yourself back down again. But she was seeing someone for many years, long before she was diagnosed with this. Also, because of her corporate lifestyle, there was a lot of skipping of meals. And at that time, she used to eat a lot of very heavy to digest, oily foods, fried foods. And as this disease progressed, then she realized that maybe she should stop eating that, and she should move on to a healthy diet. So she had moved on to the healthy diet long before she met me. But the reason why she ended up coming to me was the fact that even though she's eating a very healthy diet now, for some reason, it really hasn't improved or changed in any way. She was still going to the bathroom 10 to 12 times. Yeah, and so I asked her, so is it ever solid? But for her, it wasn't. It was always very liquid and inconsistent. Every maybe now and then, sometimes it may be a little bit solid, but for the most part, it was very liquid. And what that kind of indicated was, again, with the chronicity, the grahini was almost completely gone. So just to give you an idea what her diet was like when she came in, is she would have oatmeal for breakfast, maybe a piece of toast with organic peanut butter. She used to have a fresh cooked lunch. So even her food was freshly cooked. She would cook it in the morning and take it with her because she found that if she did end up eating what was available, it would just become worse. So she got into the habit of cooking her food in the morning and taking it with her. And for dinner, she would have soup and other lighter foods. Every now and then, she would have a salad. She didn't really tend to eat a lot of raw food. She had tried to keep her meal times regular. She did have an urge for snacking. She did feel like she needed to snack, but that's also because her energy was really low. And for snacks, she would have nuts, and she really, really craved sweets. But that's also because her prakriti was pitta kapha, and she really wanted the sweet. She was very good in drinking water. She would drink 6 to 8 glasses of water in a day, and she never drank tea, coffee, or anything. She would like wine, but her condition was so chronic that she couldn't drink alcohol. If she drank it, she said that, this is how she described it, she could feel it burning as it would go down, because it had become so chronic that her mucosal lining was like really depleting. So nothing acidic, no citrus fruits, no lime or lemon in hot water at all. Even the hot water, she was a little skeptical that she probably can't drink the hot water, because anything that's hot at all would irritate. She would feel it going down, and it would irritate her. So it was that advanced and that chronic. Okay. I asked her, did you ever get constipation? She said no. She never really had any issues with constipation. Sometimes with the bowel evacuations, there would be mucus that would come out. So that mucus is nothing but some of the ama coming out with it as well. But remember, when we talked about the ama being formed and being in such a chronic state, some of the ama is expected to move out. It won't just stay in the stomach, but it doesn't mean that it's not there anymore. Some will be here. There's so much in quantity, there's enough for it to distribute. So some of the ama would also end up in the stool. Yeah.
She have undigested food in her stool?
Yes, sometimes it would come out exactly the same way as it went in.
And so she's going that much and she's eating the times you said, so her transit time was barely in a couple hours, maybe?
Yeah. Yeah.
How does mucus present in the stool? I mean, what's it look like?
So when, okay, you're very, very deceptive here now. It's sort of a liquidy nature, but it's
Does it have a shape?
it's kind of slimy.
Well,
slimy, so it
slimy, sticky, but
yeah.
does it? Because somebody had told me about mucoids
Mhm.
that actually look like they're kind of wormy-like in shape. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah, so it looks kind of like that because it's really that much of slime.
Yeah.
And the slime comes out in sort of a long, elongated manner that looks like a worm. If you look back at it, it looks almost like a parasite that has come out, but it's actually mucus. It's slime. And what we would say it is really ama. It's a lot of ama that has gotten a good chance to ferment. And that, when it comes out like that, that again indicates how long that ama has been sitting there. That and it's so slimy and so good and fermented that it has an actual form, and that it's not just a little bit, but it's an elongated form. So it's like ama passing out of the stomach, going on to the other.
I have pictures of that.
Yeah, yeah. No, I've seen it.
I mean,
I've seen it.
that's what
I have seen it. And it does. It looks exactly like a parasite
And
that you would think.
I kept going back to the doctor to say, can you please test this? I think these are parasites, and they would all come back negative because they're testing for Giardia. Just identify this, please. But I was just curious because I
Yes.
wasn't sure if it comes out, if it's wrapped around the mucus, the stool, or if it's just separated, or
It can
when
come,
it's liquid.
when it's liquid, it comes out looking like almost like a parasite. But if the stool is formed, it can be stuck to the sides of the stool as well.
Mm.
And that's what as it keeps going and more ama keeps kind of getting displaced and digested and it's moving out, it becomes a little bit solid, but they may still have some of that foul smelling. And that, again, the foul smelling is just it's moving out with ama.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, that mucus can be stuck to the solid stool, and mucus can definitely be in the loose stools as well.
If it's in the loose stools, well, there tend to be a little kind of poop-colored snot.
Yes, thank you. That's exactly right.
Okay.
Yes, it's going
Perfect.
Yes, exactly. That's a great description.
Would you ever, are we always expecting ama to be, when it's digested, to be digested in the stomach so that the good sign is that it does not come out in the bowel movements? Or is sometimes when it moves out in the bowel movements, that's a good thing too, because we just want it to come out no matter what. So when you see mucus in the stool, that can actually be a good sign that the body is getting rid.
Yeah,
Okay.
it can be. And when I asked her she told me that there was mucus coming out with the stool in the first consult. And at the follow-up, there wasn't really mucus. She said, as it progressed, it started to become more and more solid. Her stools, which she was very surprised about. She was not at all expecting that her stool would ever be solid because she got so used to it just being liquid all the time. So it did start to get more and more solid. And yes, whenever we're doing anything to initiate a change or to induce a change in the system, sometimes it gets digested there, sometimes it will move on, and whatever's moving on, it will start to cleanse that and move that out as well. And seeing mucus in the stool once you have initiated or started an intervention, then that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really to see if there is an improvement of the quality of stools, and an improvement, is it getting better or is it getting worse? Mm-hmm. That's what indicates whether it's what you're doing is really working or if it's not helping them at all. Ideally, if they're following you, and this gives you an idea as to whether they really are being compliant. Mm-hmm. And we do want to ask them. Sometimes people are very truthful, but then sometimes, as you said, sometimes they tell you things and you can see that they're really not telling you everything because they don't want to seem like, oh, well, I didn't do anything what you asked me to do, but I'm still back here because I still want to be helped, but I just couldn't do that. So sometimes you'll still be able to see those signs. And the indication, again, of the presence of ama, you'll be looking for those nir-ama symptoms. You'll be looking to see if they have started or if they haven't started at all. You'll look to see the regression or the clearing of the tongue, and if it has started to get better or if it's still the same way, or if it has become worse than what it was before. So all the things that indicated that ama was there in the first place, that's the starting point, and then when you see the follow-up, then you look at how those same signs and symptoms changed.
Yeah, well, sometimes it show itself worse on the tongue. Like sometimes you'll look at someone and they'll seem like they have a neuroma situation, but the ama's kind of been hiding, and then it comes back to the GI tract, and they get the covering. Sometimes, even in a seasonal cleanse, you can see that the tongue gets thick, that where it had been clear. Someone can have more of a coating on your tongue when they're doing more cleansing kind of procedures that wasn't there.
Yeah.
Does that seem natural too when you're doing the buttermilk with the?
Ideally, if you're bringing back ama from some large spot in the limbs or in the other in the other margas or the other places where disease can happen, if you're bringing it back to the GIT, that usually doesn't reflect so much in the tongue. That will reflect in how the person feels. So they may say, I'm feeling kind of heavy, or I'm feeling kind of bloated, or I'm feeling some discomfort in my stomach. But then I had it for like a day or two, and then it started to get better. So that when it starts to move and come back, they will feel some discomfort. And then, so that's why I usually want to ask them and tell them that, if you're doing this, there are some days that you may feel a little discomfort, but that is expected, and then it will go away. If it starts to get too out of hand, then let me know.
I've observed that before, though, in cleansing and even in panchakarma,
Oh
where it's almost like, the colon is the tongue is part of the digestive tract. So if it is coming back, to the digestive system, I have seen it reflected, and but it goes away quickly because then it's now moving out. So I have observed that.
That clear in that process. I have pictures. I was going to post them on Facebook, like deep, so people really want to find them. Of my tongue through my 5-week panchakarma in India, and after the ghee, like right after the ghee, my whole tongue, it was like somebody had put Elmer's glue or wallpaper. I looked at it, it was just unbelievably creaky, covered with white, and then like in 2 days it was, so that was exactly that. It was everything coming out into the GI tract. It was astounding.
Yeah. And that's because in that situation you're inducing that saturation.
Right, yeah.
When you induce the saturation, it will happen. So in the cleanse, if you're taking ghee beforehand, then that can happen.
But otherwise, in the kind of treatment that we're talking about here,
They will feel the discomfort.
No, I've seen it when we've been pushing it, like doing ghee or preparing, purva stuff. Yeah, so that's true.
Yeah. In this situation, they'll feel the discomfort, but you want it to regress. It should start to go down. Because again, in this situation, they're not ready for inducing that kind of cleanse yet. They're not strong enough. And she clearly wasn't strong enough. So I'll tell you the whole situation of her case, because it was really great that after we started.
She was overweight too, right?
Yes, she was overweight too. I'm sorry?
She does have neuromuscular stuff too.
She does, but she didn't really talk too much about it. And it's funny because I've had about 3 follow-ups with her already. And she's never really mentioned it, like it's an issue. And
I'm sorry.
oh yes, because she couldn't do the asanas. Yeah, she said she didn't want. One thing she said that, if she does some of the asanas, she feels that she will feel it coming up. Yeah, she had the acid reflux, and if she does some of the asanas, she could feel it. Yeah. So even that is
like in a major way.
Yeah.
Like headache, but like
yeah.
Like more
in a major
versions
way.
kind of things.
Versions.
No,
Not
anything.
necessarily.
Anything.
Yeah, not necessarily. Yeah, if I was really working particular marmas of like digestion and stuff like that, like she needed little by little, just a very she needed to kind of scale back the form like a 50 or 30% compared to like what you would imagine for like a posture.
But her whole system was completely damaged. I mean, from the time when I started seeing her, it was really damaged.
Right.
So
But part of like what you said, like a lot of it too was maybe some physical, but much of it was also very emotional.
Yeah.
There was
a huge
60-40 emotion like during that work.
And she had anger, and it was in the 3rd chakra.
Yeah, she had a huge emotional component in that as well, and that definitely was a major nidana, a causative factor for her to have this condition, along with all of the other stress. And so here you could see that it really did kind of start with the mind and the disturbance of that, and then trickling down to how the body is responding to the daily activities, and then building and growing and growing and growing, and then causing that mandagni, and then creating that ama, and then it just keeps building and building until it gets to this point. And then you still can't change that. That emotion is still there. And the thing about, and she's talking about this emotion on a regular basis of seeing the psychiatrist. So it's bringing back up that emotion again. And it's constantly feeding into the strength of the disease. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And though she changed her diet, and though she started to try and make measures and this is where you get into the fact that sometimes the diet and lifestyle won't work because of the fact that the disease is so strong, it needs something more. At that point, just being able to look at, your Vata diet or your Pitta diet won't really help, because she did make that change. And she said that maybe it kind of sort of maintained for a little bit, but it was still very much there. And it was still so chronic that it had already damaged a lot. There was a lot of depletion in all of her tissues, complete malabsorption. You could see the ridges on her nails, that, her vitamins and minerals really weren't getting absorbed at all. Okay. And her face is very, very red. And, if she talks a little bit, her face immediately starts to turn red. So she did have that. Her immunity was fairly okay, but she did say that she was starting to get some colds and coughs kind of a little bit more frequently over the past year or two. It was happening. And so I asked her, are you a person who, is she more, her metabolism, and is she generally tends to be more on the warm side or the cold side? That she tends to be more on the warm side naturally. She did feel very tired and weak and fatigued quite often. She did sweat very easily, and she did sweat a lot. And she would feel thirsty a lot. Okay. And so in the psychological part, like I said, she had a lot of stress and a lot of emotions that were being held, and she kept it with her. There wasn't any release or any outlet for that emotion. And another thing when we first started was that there didn't seem to be any source of joy in her life. That was another thing. So even with the stress and all of the anger and all of the emotion, there wasn't much that was really giving her any joy. So she was just kind of living with this in a very unhappy situation, and that just snowballing more into being frustrated and being unhappy and having to deal with a lot of stuff. And on top of that, going through menopause. So in the she had used Uvoring for contraception, and they had put her on some other medication that was supposed to sort of pacify or sort of stop the intensity or symptoms of the menopause. And so she just recently came off of that, but she was on that at that time. So she said that sometimes she got hot flashes, but she was taking this medicine to kind of inhibit any of the reactions that you would feel for menopause. So though her body may be going through menopause, she wouldn't really feel it during that. So her doctor said that, this is what she needed to take, and she was okay with taking that. She didn't really have any history of like fibroids or yeast infections or anything like that.
Has she been tested for thyroid and diabetes?
Yeah, so she has hypothyroidism. And she has hypothyroidism, and she was taking medication for her thyroid as well.
And no diabetes?
No diabetes.
Was she taking medication for that?
She was before, but she had stopped it. By the time she got to me, she stopped it. She didn't want to take it anymore.
Okay.
Was it a
I was just like,
you know, did she have blood work to show her levels? Because then you're jeopardizing your heart if her levels are so high. The thyroid is.
No, she was taking her thyroid medicine.
Oh, I thought you said she wasn't.
GERD.
She was. The GERD medicine she wasn't, but the thyroid medicine she was.
Was the GERD medicine that she had taken the proton pump inhibitor or something?
I think, yeah.
Because
I think it was.
Because those turn off the pumps.
Yeah. I think she was. She had taken it and then she stopped taking it. She said that she didn't want to take it anymore. So she stopped taking it and she said, I'm just going to try and manage it with what I'm doing.
Can we just talk about thirst? Because we talk about hunger being there and not there. So you said she had an increase in thirst. I've been wondering this weekend, what does it mean if you have no thirst or if you have an increase?
You have an increase of thirst can happen. Remember, the thirst can be related to the burning sensation of the pachaka pitta being displaced. So that can happen. Usually if you have the situation, there is no hunger or there's a very low hunger. That's the root cause for this disease and all the presentations of the disease. If the person is feeling thirsty, even though they have this condition, then that usually means that it's an issue with the pachaka pitta that's creating that burning sensation. Remember the Pittaja type of remedy? He said that the person they feel burning, they feel that burning in their heart, they feel the burning in their chest, and that's kind of the reflected feeling of, they'll say they feel thirsty because it's really the heat. It's not an actual thirst that their throat is dry, but it's actually the heat that they feel that they want to drink water or drink some fluid that is going to pacify that extreme burning sensation that they're feeling.
Okay, so that's just a little different than what I would think of as being thirsty.
Yeah, it's different than a regular normal thirst as opposed to, trying to drink fluids because they're feeling a burning sensation to try to take care of that. Yeah. A usual normal thirst should be in like a dryness in the mouth, and that's why due to the dryness you need to have that fluid. It's not necessarily that you're feeling burning and you need the fluid. Yeah.
So just speaking about thirst, I guess you can probably either ask or see on the tongue what kind of thirst this is, right? By identifying if there's a dryness in the tongue, then maybe there's a real thirst, the thirst that you need to quench, and then the other one, which is the burning.
Yeah, absolutely. And in her case, of course, she had pitta across the board for everything. And apart from that, her prakriti was also pitta kapha. So she, and as Hillary said, the funny thing is that she is overweight. So in her case, she looks overweight, but it really wasn't the weight. It was the bloating and the gas that made it look like she was overweight. So she thinks that she needs to lose weight, and with this, so if someone is going to the bathroom 10 to 12 times a day and they want to lose weight, what do you tell them in that situation? Like, you really want to lose weight? And if they're doing that, is it really that if they look overweight, are they really overweight? What does that mean? That was what we talked about yesterday, is that just because they look like this, we don't know what that is representing until we do an examination to figure out, is it really fat? Is it really fluid? Or is it really just gas? It's just a lot of gas that also looks exactly the same way externally. Yeah.
Along that line, when you were talking about the palpating and the different sounds and that kapha would be soft, is there, though, when kapha is chronic, a hardness that's shown in the fat also?
Yes.
Okay.
And when that happens, it usually is in one place. It's not distributed. It will solidify in one place, and then you can feel it, and you can palpate around it. It wouldn't be like kapha across the board, and then the whole thing is hard. And if that's the case, then that's like something really serious. That's a whole other disease and not just kapha solidifying at all. But kapha can solidify, it can. But usually when it does solidify, it'll solidify in one place, not distributed. the solidification of kapha won't be distributed in that sense. It's stagnant in one place and you can feel it, and it feels like a lump. Yeah.
Okay. Because sometimes I feel like when I palpate people who are often who are larger and have high blood pressure, they're really hard. Their bodies are so hard. They're very sensitive because there's nowhere for anything to go.
Right.
And what do you think that is? Because you just answered your question. What do you think that is?
Well,
That
I guess yeah. Now, that it's the blood. It's taking up all the room. The blood pressure. So
it's the vata. It's the vata. Because remember, I told you how it would feel.
Yeah.
In a kapha tends to be more soft and mridu. Go back to the gunas. Go back to the basics of what you learned. Mridu and softness is associated with kapha. So when you palpate kapha, if it is due to kapha, it will be soft. It will be soft. It'll be if it's kapha or if it is fat, it'll still be soft.
Okay.
Right?
And it won't be troubling the lips.
No.
With that hardness.
But if it is hard, like you're palpating and if there's resistance, then it's usually vata, because that hardness again is due to the expulsion or the expansion. Thank you. The expansion that has happened because of so much of vata inside. So another way to figure it out, that you palpate and it feels really, really hard, or they feel guarded. If you can do the sounds, you'll find that the sound produced by tapping is quite loud compared to if it was kapha, it would be more hollow and more mild. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So essentially, you can't really separate the disease as just a GI disorder, because there's such a huge psychological component to it. So treating one it's not the root cause. It's like the GI tract is the result of. So the root cause takes you back to helping her psychologically, and her therapist isn't probably working essentially if it's not getting better.
Right. And one thing that I found that I couldn't tell her to don't go to your psychologist.
Right.
I can't tell her to do that. I didn't want to tell her to do that either, because that might be a bit too aggressive. But what I did ask her is that, what are the things that you are interested in? And she was in the class and she was really drawn to Ayurveda, and she really loved learning Ayurveda. That was the one thing that was making her happy. And that was the one thing that she really did look forward to. And so it was great that the fact that we were able to have this outlet, or this activity that she's doing that's really bringing joy to her life. And she would look forward to doing this. And she would look forward to studying Ayurveda. Like, she would go to the office and then she'd be sitting and practicing how to say the 5 bhutas in Sanskrit. And she'd keep going over it and over and over again. And even though she's sitting in the office and doing the work that she may not really love her job either. I mean, the job wasn't a huge factor, but she didn't necessarily love it. But she would sit there and she'd be studying Ayurveda, and she'd be like, one of my colleagues who sits next to me, she's this Indian woman, and she's like, I have never seen somebody work so hard just to pronounce this. And, she took joy. Like, you could see her face light up when she would talk about learning this. So this is what actually helped to bring back that focus and that joy in her life, where all of the other things really it wasn't providing any sort of joy for her. So it was great that actually she was part of the class, and that made it a whole lot easier as well for treatment.
There's a couple, there's lots of books, but the book Molecules of Emotion by Candace Pert and The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk, and they talk about our bodies holding the emotion. So I think as I'm listening to you speak, when we do work their bodies, like, you're giving the other components. She's got somebody she's talking to, but then you begin to work the body and things get released. That's just the beautiful marriage of the two of them together. It's just, really wonderful. And add joy, and add some joy, and you're like, wow, that's the mix.
Yeah, I know, absolutely. And the thing is, like, even sometimes, like, you have these nidanas, like, for instance, you have this huge baggage of emotion that is sitting there, and the person is dealing with it in whichever way they know best. And you can't exactly tell them to get over it, and you can't tell them to stop seeing their psychologist. So, and what I found is better than being negative and saying, don't do this and don't do that and don't do that, you just focus on what is positive and say, well, maybe you can do this, and this might, or, focus on a positive way to deliver what you want to do instead of focusing on a negative way. So as Gerard says, being empathic and in how you speak with the person, it was a lot about, talking to her as she was just having a discussion or a conversation. That was the way she wanted to go with it. That's why half of my case sheet is still empty, because I didn't get a chance to go through it. She wanted to tell her story, and I had to give her a chance to tell her story. I couldn't try to figure out or write down every single detail. But in the story, she did end up giving up a lot of the details that I wanted to know. So afterwards, I kind of just went back and kind of filled in what I could. But it was a lot of that, because again, that indicated how much of that emotional causative factor was there for her.
So my sense of it all kind of became this perfect. And you said at the beginning there's no such thing as mental trauma, but when there is a trauma, when there is something that happens, my understanding was it was stored in the fatty tissues, and that's the reason we did Abhyanga and Shirodar, was to replace the molecularly charged fats in the body with new fats, so these things could be displaced and help us work through them. So where did I go wrong?
I don't think it's as such as the term ama is maybe I don't think that's the appropriate term. Maybe it's stored emotion, and emotion is something that doesn't necessarily have a physical form, just like the mind doesn't have a physical form. These emotions are similar to like doshas of the mind, either being rajasika or tamasika in quality. And those doshas of the mind are things that we can store, because the mind is something that's circulating all over the body. So it can affect the functions of the body because it's in the body, right? So it can be stored in those situations. Sometimes when you, for instance, like when you do certain body works and it releases certain emotions for people, it can help to release that flow of their mind. That's kind of, or release that block in the flow of their mind. So that's kind of how it sort of pushes off or releases those emotions are being flowed out. So the reason I said there isn't mental ama is because ama is not really the appropriate term, but it's actually a more appropriate term would be a mental dosha. It is termed as manasika dosha. And the manasika dosha, as already said, it's rajasika and tamasika. And that's, if you look at it, the anger and the stress and that, what she was holding on to was rajasika in nature, which is very heating in nature. And it was that heat factor that was aggravating Pachika Pitta, but that heat factor. Sorry. I was trying to look up a book. Surely it's fascinating. But the thing about what we know with stress is, even though it is a very heating sort of emotion, it doesn't in any way help to increase your Agni. It still will actually suppress your Agni. So stress doesn't increase your Agni, though being a fiery sort of emotion, it still suppresses the Agni.
That was just trying to look this up, but I thought I was with you in that, in my interpretation, I don't know if I made this up or read it, but that when we are in stressful emotional situations, we create too many hormones and chemicals relative to that, and that our body protects us from that excess by wrapping them in the fat. And that when we do the body work, we're cleaning those stored molecules of emotion out. And that seems, I always felt the same way, that seems analogous to ama, in that it's undigested, literally undigested hormones, just like, our emotional system is hormonal.
So what you're describing is exactly the same thing, but the only thing is we're using a different terminology. We won't use the terminology ama. But we did learn about the Manova Shrotas, right? And we learned that the mind goes in that Shrotas. And if there is doshas of the mind, that doshas can cause a change in the quality of that Shrotas. And we learned about the different variations or the pathologies that can happen in these Shrotas, right? So what's happening there is with these emotions, it's changing either the space in that Shrotas, or it is blocking the flow in that Shrotas. So it's almost exactly what you described, the same thing. The only thing is it's a dosha and not ama. That's the only difference, because we're not, if you have Rajasika dosha or of the mind, the Manasika doshas, whichever one it is, you don't necessarily need to digest that, but the ways to correct that is different. The thing about ama is the way to get rid of ama is to digest it. But the way to get rid of these Manasika doshas is not to digest it. It is to release it. So now do you understand why we don't term it as ama?
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
So the body work may be releasing it, meditation, pranayama, asana may be releasing it, but it's not actually processing it. It's just taking out the garbage.
And that's why, another reason why talking through the emotion or trying to do that isn't, it's just it actually cultivates it more than reducing. But what this does, and that's the reason, also the reason why Devya Vyapashraya Chikitsa, which is the different types of, including yoga practices, including meditation, including the different rituals, including the astrology, all of these factors look at helping to release and give a better flow of the mind in the body.
So did you prescribe body work and pranayama or anything like that?
I did ask her to do a little bit of pranayama, but not in the beginning, because there's only so much you can ask them to do in the beginning. Take one step at a time.
She was in our class though, and she was required to be doing things. And
I
we
was giving her some pranayama. I also did a little yoga with her as well. We discussed a little
she was getting, she's really bright, and she was grasping it. She wanted to get to the bottom of this herself. And she was grabbing from Kristen Ray and me and Anusha and the books. So she was in the middle of this wonderful field of knowledge.
And she was taking
it, and she wanted to be better, and she wanted to do it as naturally as she could. And so all the way along, it was like, great, 9 months. They graduate next in a couple of weeks. This weekend. So she just happened to be in the right place. So she was doing Dinacharya. She started doing all the Dinacharya. She's really compliant. She was doing whatever she could that Kristen Ray gave her, with her limitations.
I gave her yoga therapy.
And she was being emotionally really supported. She was in a sangha. And a wonderful group of people. So this was just a cool.
It was the right environment, like all around.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, considering the physical part of it, if we're just looking at the disease and the physical part of it, it really was bad. It was really bad.
I didn't know that. So
it was really bad. But I mean, because she is a pitta person, and she doesn't want to show that she's weak in any way. She refused to let anyone know that she is weak in any way, or that she has a problem, or she's really suffering through this. And sometimes in the class, if you ever notice, like we're sitting there and we're talking, we would have all day classes, and sometimes you could see the discomfort coming on, and she would start twitching or moving or trying to figure out a way to get herself to be a little bit comfortable and suffer through whatever she was feeling. but still wanted to sit there and be a part of the class and not like run outside and or anything like that. She didn't want anyone to know what she was going through. But even when she talked about it, she didn't talk about it like it was. She was one of those lagurogis that she has a very severe condition, but doesn't want to say that it's so bad. But what kind of tipped me off as to how bad it really was when I asked her, so how do you feel with spices? So she came in and she gave me a list of spices that she had gone to someone else and they gave her a spice blend, a masala blend. And they told her it was a blend of actually a lot of the spices on the list of 10. They gave her that, and they gave her almost all of those. I think there was 8 of them. And so when I looked at the spice list, I'm like, well, this is actually a really good spice list. This is good for this condition. But this is what tipped me off as to how bad it was, is that when she took this, she said there was so much a flare-up that she couldn't handle it. That she loves spices and she's ready to eat it, but she ate this and it was just out of control. And she thought that the spices would be good, so she asked me, can I still take these spices? I like the spices, I want to eat them, but can I do this? Can you give me a spice blend? And she was motivated, sometimes a little bit too over motivated because she so wanted to get better. But that I had to kind of pull some restraint on that, it's great to be motivated, but you don't need to do a lot of things. You just need to do one thing that's good, and that is sufficient enough. So for her in the beginning, what I advised was for her to take takra and the ajamuda powder. Takra and ajamuda powder. That's all I asked her to do. And I asked her to take this 3 times a day before her meal. And I showed her how to make the takra. And this was how compliant she was. She really did. She did it every day. And living in Manhattan and traveling an hour to work, an hour back from work, and having this very demanding lifestyle, she really did it. And that's why I told her the results you're seeing is completely your work. It had nothing to do with me. I just kind of gave you some tips. But she's the one who did the work for it. So she really did get the results for that. So she took ajwain and takra for 1 month. I asked her to take this for 1 month, and we would follow up after 1 month. After 2 weeks, I said that, if you're feeling, let me know how you're feeling after 2 weeks and see how you're responding to the takra and ajmuda churna. And then we can decide if we want to add something to that. So after 2 weeks, she said that in the beginning, she felt some discomfort, and she felt that there was some gurgling, and there was some movement, and some days she didn't really like it too much. She also did not like cilantro. So, she didn't want to add that in, even though that would have been really good for her. But she did like the mint, so sometimes she would put the mint in.
Would you ever put parsley? It doesn't have the same kind of an effect as...
Parsley is digestive, but it's not cooling. But the mint is digestive and cooling, and so is the cilantro. It's digestive and cooling. So that's kind of why. But the good thing is she liked the mint. She didn't like the cilantro, so there was a good alternative. She didn't eat much salt at all. When I made it for her, I put my level of salt. Your hand's way too heavy. So after about 2 weeks, she started to see a difference in that it was reduced to maybe around 6 times.
Wow.
And it was starting to get semi-solid at that point. It wasn't so liquid anymore. It wasn't completely solid, but it was starting to become semi-solid. So at that point, I asked her to take guduchi. So at that point, I asked her to she could add in guduchi.
Into the takra.
She could take it with it. Yeah. So she started taking guduchi, but I again, Guruchi is something that, as Gerard had mentioned, it is something that really works very well for this condition. It digests ama. It enhances absorption. Another thing about Guruchi is it's high calcium content, so it really helps to pacify and mitigate the burning sensation that she's having. So that was another reason. Just like actually an Ayurvedic antacid, the Guruchi works that way.
So how long did you have her do just the
just the Ajamoda and Takra was for 2 weeks. After that, she added on the Guruchi, but she continued this till 2 months. So she started with just the Takra and the Ajamoda, and then from here she added on. This still remained, and she added on the Guruchi, and this went to 2 months.
3 times a day.
No, the Takra she took 3 times a day. The Guruchi she took only once a day with the Takra, and that I actually asked her to take in the afternoon and with her before her lunch, because that would be the time that she would find the maximum amount of that burning sensation and the extreme pitta symptoms. Yep.
Fresh mint contraindicated for upper GI, especially if you have reflux because bowel.
Not from our perspective. It works really well. And also with the medium of Takra, it's a very good synergy of the mint oil. Yeah.
It doesn't oil and that.
It was fresh mint. Just fresh mint, a couple of leaves she would add in while she was blending it. And
Spearmint, not peppermint. Peppermint is a little harsher. Yeah, it's spearmint, which is usually what people get when they have fresh mint. That's much more cooling.
yeah, but I found that both the types of mint, as for Ayurveda, both the types of mint have the similar property. But yeah, if you find that there's a difference in intensity, because I don't have as much experience with the peppermint as opposed to the spearmint. Is peppermint the one that has like the kind of heart-shaped leaf?
Yeah.
It's the bigger and thicker?
Yeah.
The bigger leaf and the thicker leaf? Okay, yes. So yeah, that one is a little bit stronger than the peppermint.
Spearmint is the spearmint's the typical mint most people have.
Spearmint, and peppermint is the big one. Okay, yeah. Yeah, so the spearmint was the one that she used. The spearmint. Yes, you're right. So I wasn't sure about the English names. But yes, the peppermint is stronger than the spearmint. But she used spearmint, the regular fresh mint leaves. Okay.
Were all the herbs that Gerard talked about good for restoring the mucosal lining, or was it simply shatavari and what else would be good for that?
Shatavari is good, but because shatavari also has a high calcium content, so it has a similar action of Guruchi as being like the antacid, the natural antacid. I think Guruchi is probably a better choice than shatavari for this, because its site of action actually specifically for the out of all the actions that Guruchi has, its most important action is in increasing the and digesting ama. That's why Guruchi is considered the drug of choice for fevers. Regardless of any type of fever, Guruchi is the drug of choice. It is the agra aushadha, or the drug of choice for fevers. And because fever is the root cause is an issue with the other. So Guruchi tends to work, and also for the same thing, that it has multiple factors that help in this condition. So you may not necessarily need Guruchi as such in a Vataja type of Grahini, or maybe not so much in a Kapaja type of Grahini, but in the Pittaja type of Grahini, because of the high calcium content, it worked really well in helping to pacify the intensity of the symptoms, like the burning sensation and the reflux and everything else that she So that's the reason why I added in the Guduchi for her. Okay. And so she got Guduchi powder, and I mean, she got the Guduchi capsules, and I asked her to take 2 capsules at lunchtime with her tucker. Okay. And so that, I didn't increase the dose of that, I just kind of left it as such. Because I felt that this was, during the midday was the most appropriate time for her to be having that. Okay. So after 1 month of taking this, it just so happened that I went back, I was teaching again the next month, so we had a follow-up the next month. And within 1 month, it had reduced down to around twice a day that she was going to the bathroom. And it had significantly solidified. It was for the most part solid, sometimes semi-solid, but not liquid anymore. And she did still occasionally get the gas and the bloating, but it was much better than it was before. She said that she felt like she lost 1 pound after doing this for 1 month, and it wasn't really the weight loss, it was the bloating and the gas that had reduced. The intensity of the redness in her face had also gone down. I mean, she is Pitta Prakriti, so like if she laughs or she talks or she gets excited about something, it immediately shows in her face. But I mean, the constant redness that she had before had significantly reduced. And she said that she did go to her doctor before. I didn't ask her to do this. This was just a regular checkup. She did go to her doctor, and they did do an endoscopy, and she said that they said everything was fine. There was really no issues there. And her statin levels, her cholesterol was in a very normal, healthy range, which her doctor said, I don't know what you're doing, but usually you take statins. These are her words. Usually you take statins to get this sort of reading. So whatever you're doing, keep doing it. And so she did. Her cholesterol was normal. It was good. She still was taking her thyroid medication. Of course, I usually don't say anything when it comes to that. I mean, just keep it in the back of my head, but that's between her and her doctor. So you just leave it at that. But within 1 month, there was a change, and it had a lot to do with everything that was going on. But she was compliant. She was an ideal case of compliance as well. She really worked hard and did this every single day. Made chakra fresh every single day. Walked around with her bottle of chakra, took it at the appropriate time. But she was the case, and you guys saw it as well. And within 2 months at the second month follow-up, it was down to once a day. She would go once a day, very well-formed stools, and there wasn't the issue of gas didn't at all really happen. She traveled a little bit, and she ate some kettle corn, and so she got a little bit of constipation. But for the most part, there wasn't.
So after 2 months,
So it's good that you got to hear about our star case. I should see you Yeah, you guys have my email. We're all in a group email.
Easy squeeze.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
It was such a pleasure. Thank you for breakfast.
yeah.
Such a pleasure. Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And now,
All right, now you can share the real.
Now you can tell us the real secret.
Now the riffraff.
No, so my question was after 2 months, how did she look visually? How did she look physically? Did she
So the thing about her is like, for the most part, if you look at her, she looks like a very strong person. And that's more of like her personality of being she's a very pitta person. She's very organized and very determined. And she would, even though we can see the signs, she would never let anyone know. Like you said, you guys spent even more time with her than I did, and she would never let anybody know that this is what was going on. But after a month of taking this and seeing the change, she voluntarily told everyone.
Yeah, I was gonna
Yeah.
say,
She
I don't remember
volunteered that information.
I don't remember the first time, but I remember saying like, oh, like, there was definitely like, women are really important to you, like, and then there was like something else in Mahadasha, and like she like went into that, and then
Oh, really?
really wanted to share a new story.
Yeah.
Like, there was definitely like I want to rewrite my book.
Yes.
Like, and
yes.
This is my.
That was
this is my
very
new-
clear.
Yeah.
Very clear.
Yeah.
Her sharing class at that point.
Yeah.
I think she looked great.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
saw her.
and like, yes, you could, and because that was the cool thing is like there was the you could see, but then also she was also saying and sharing and like just really like loose and
And joyous.
Yes.
Well, it's
Yeah.
not
Yes.
that she was refining herself. Like
Yeah,
she
she
said, I'm my illness. And that struck home with me so much because I have a friend who hasn't slept for years. And I've been trying to sort of help him ever since I started with Ayurveda, and it's really resistant. And finally one day I said to him, I said, maybe the first thing you have to sort of confront is you have to stop introducing yourself as, hi, I'm Bob who doesn't sleep. And he got really mad. And it was, I think that sometimes people, when they have these chronic things, that they identify with it so much that giving it up, even though it's a negative thing, giving it up is harder than
Part of their identity.
it's part of their identity.
And it has become reliable. Their disease is reliable because they know it's a constant. It's always there. So I don't know if this is going to work, but I know this is always going to happen. So they depend on that reliability of it.
I gotta add to that though, that I had a history of migraines in my life from like very young, like maybe 4 on to into my 30s. And I had been trying as an adult to fix it. And I one day had this kind of like, maybe I have like migraines, like I have blue eyes. Like maybe, like people have their shit, like some people are born handicapped, they can't see or they can't walk or whatever it might be. And it was literally when I accepted it that they started to dissolve very quickly. And I'm not saying that all of the things that I had been doing hadn't been helpful and that it was all part of the past, but there was very strongly something, not in that I am a migraine sufferer or that kind of identification, but just like a softening around it. Like, of course I'm going to do what I am, but I'm not going to be like fighting it. Like, I'm going to get rid of this, I'm going to do whatever it takes. It's like, it might not go away ever, and I need to start not pushing it. And that really, I think, made a clear difference. And now that once in a blue moon, I might get a migraine. With no, change in my reproductive system, or blah, 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 blah. It wasn't that per se. And it may have been something else that hit a tipping point, but that almost seemed like it went down to that like 2 times a month instead of, So there was that piece too of acceptance.
Yeah, and I think there was something really interesting because Anusha was talking about the emotion with, and that was kind of where she started when she was talking to me. Like she started talking about her husband and just her jaw got really tight, and that was like that was a really big thing, and it just and I wasn't I wasn't bullshitting her, but I was like women are like you need to like how are your relationships with women and like you have like women you're close to, friends, whatever. I was like, it really seems like, you're stepping into the space where, female relationships are really important. And she immediately was like, meeting Hillary and this program, and I think this program is so important. And, so she was like actually having this positive reinforcement a little bit about what I had said, along with maybe some acceptance about, because I don't remember, but it would be nice if you like, yeah, we don't have to talk about this, or it looks like, because I didn't know, and I said, it looks like maybe we need to divorce, and I was like, no, that we don't have to talk about that. And as soon as like that kind of came in, it was like she had something positive to focus on rather than pushing against this thing that was never going to change.
That's significant. That's significant. That
Yeah,
pushing and
looking at it, yeah.
right.
Going around the mountain.
And I feel like she was, the taking the Ayurveda class really was the one thing that she was doing that was really helpful, that she was doing on her own before we even talked about it. And it was the one source of joy. And actually having experienced it then, being able to implement this and do this. And she never thought that she would get to the situation that she did not have to run to the bathroom. And having experienced it within 1 month, that this all the more solidified what she was so interested in and she was loving. So it just brought out more joy and more happiness. And so that pushed her even more to want to be, to keep following this and doing this every day, as well as learning more. And now she's decided that she wants to go and she wants to learn it and take the course and become a health counselor and keep this, and this is going to be her path, because it seemed like you said, it was just the right time with all the right components that was, this is enough of GERD for you, or enough of IBS, move on. And it just headed in the right direction. And so, but she did all the work. She really did, because I know it's easy for us to say, to make tucker every day. And I know it's easy for me to say that, and for you to tell somebody else to do that. But for somebody to adopt that and to have to do that and keep that discipline is hard. And if they don't, when you do the follow-up and they say, well, I did it for a couple of days and then I couldn't, I had other things going on and I kind of lapsed a little bit. And you say, it's okay. It's okay. It's hard. And if you do it, if you can manage to do it 2 or 3 times a week, that's also okay. I can understand, if they're non-compliant, like as Gerard was saying, you have to put yourself in their shoes and figure out why it is that they were non-compliant. I mean, nobody comes to you with the intention, unless they're really like, I just want to see what it is. Nobody really comes with the intention to be non-compliant. The whole point of them getting there is they want to do something. So if they want to do something and there's still something that ambivalent, it's blocking them, or they've reached a hurdle, then let's figure out why that hurdle is there and why that's stopping them, and work forward to see what's, distract them. So when he made us raise our hands, and when I was trying to convince her to put her hand out, I was trying to convince you to put your hand down. Instead I asked you, would you rather lie down? What would you rather do? She's like, I would rather lie down. So I'm like, okay, well, why don't you lie down? And in the process of asking her to lie down, she'd end up putting her hand down. So in the distraction of it, by distracting her, I got her to do what I wanted her to do. So sometimes when they reach those hurdles, it's good to distract them a little bit, usually distract them in a positive way. So like sometimes let them do a little bit of what they want to do to make them happy, and then they'll come back around and still start to follow and be compliant with the other things that may not be so easy to do.
Yeah. Even the glass of water in the morning can be like, oh, I just can't.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I don't have time.
I don't like water.
Yeah.
I don't like.
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't like hot water.
Yeah.
I hear that a lot.
And that does remind me, because she did have like neuromuscular and positional things. So I was telling her about some positional things for class, and then she wanted to talk to me specifically about she hurt her ankle, she hurt her shoulder, and so so I gave her some like take home things to do to start to work on that. She came back the next month and reported, what she did and what worked, and but she was doing great, but she was like kind of pushing the yoga in a way, and so then that's when I said, oh, let me just pull your chart really quickly. I've got my stuff, and then that's when really truly like what Gerardo was talking about, like that's when like the like she wants to practice the yoga, but her heart or her passion is really in the Ayurveda and is really in just this, like, like she's not going to go down the yogic path per se, and so that was when, I said, oh, look, this woman, she's like, and Hillary came into my life and she started this program and like, I'm going to commit to this. Like, I'm like, she, like, that was immediate, like, spark of joy, like, love, supporting, like, all of her pain, like, all of her struggle. And so that was what I think fed her, to, just keep the self-actualization happening.
Mm-hmm. Within 1 month of the second follow-up, she said that she had to travel a little bit, so she ate some kettle corn. She actually ended up getting constipated, but that was okay. Wow. It went away after 2 days. Yeah. So, but it's okay. Because she is a little bit of kapha too, and she does crave the sweets a lot. So she, in the beginning, she wanted the ginger candy, but even the ginger candy she couldn't have because sometimes if she had more than one, she would feel the burning again. So after the second month, she said, so I said, how do you feel with now taking hot things or spicy things? She said, it's much better. She said, I was surprised I had balsamic vinegar and a salad when I was traveling because that was all that I could really eat. And I had it and I was surprised that it didn't really upset me. And I'm like, that in itself was a really, to be able to do balsamic vinegar, and not feel it burning going down. So that also indicated that after 2 months of taking this, it started to rebuild her mucosal lining. And that's another thing that Sakra does. Sakra does start to rebuild your lining as well. And not necessarily in the sense of having to go through the whole process of digestion and then rebuild it, but in of itself that it passes through the koshta, because of the milk fat, not the milk fats, but the nutrition from the milk and the milk proteins, it actually helps to rebuild. So for instance, there's another case that I have that we, sometimes people get really excited and they over cleanse and they overdo a lot of it. And he actually damaged a lot of his celiac, and he damaged a lot of his mucosal lining, not in the upper GI, but more in the lower GI, because of all of the cleanses, the extreme cleanses that he was doing. And this also helped him to rebuild that and repair that. The Sakra was able to achieve that as well.
The nature of the extreme cleansing that this individual is doing were
multiple cleanses, including Ayurvedic cleanses as well. Not just the juice cleanse, did the juice cleanse, did Ayurvedic cleanses, I think long before that, did the colon cleanses, every kind of cleanse you can possibly think of. He had done the cleanses.
And he did that
because he wanted to be healthy, and he wants to be healthy, and for the most part he thinks that he is healthy. And he was, but then he started to get the effects of the extreme of it. And same thing, it was like Grahani. It was more of like a Vataja Grahani. It wasn't so severe. It was now beginning stages, but he did start to get all of the other associated symptoms. So though the loose motion issue wasn't so apparent, it was more of a beginning stage of that, but he had all of the other associated symptoms. And he started to get like the sores in the mouth and that sort of thing. So, and it wasn't a bad, like very severe, it was mild. Sometimes you get these canker sores, it like comes and goes. But he said it started to show up much more often. Like it'll come, it'll stay for a couple more days, and then it'll go away. And then within a month or two, it comes back again. and then I'll stay for a little longer, and it goes away again. But he kept having that back and forth. And it was a lot to do with the cleanses and the trying to be too excited about these.
When you meet people sometimes,
He was about the Prakriti. Yeah, about the Prakriti.
I meet people at some of these miscellaneous conferences who over cleanse. And they're like, how are you? And they're like saying they're great, and they just look so depleted.
Exactly, and he was definitely depleted, and you can see that. And it was, again, for the most part, you look at him, he looks like he's just about the Prakriti, or he just looks like, maybe he's thin, or he looks maybe like he's healthy, but when you go deeper, then you start to see that it's not really thin and healthy, it's depleted and thin. Then it was because of this over cleansing that, again, still, it killed his Agni with all the process of this. And it also displaced the Pachaka Pitta. So that's why he ended up getting the heat kind of burning away at spots and sort of a little bit of acid reflux, not so much he had it, but he had the canker sores. And he had definitely that effect in the digestion.
When you have somebody with GERD or with fairly severe reflux, do you ever prescribe, what about Yastimati, something that's a demulcent? That probably doesn't cure the problem, but would you use it maybe in conjunction to just help keep moisture in?
Yashimadu is indicated for Grahini as well. It is indicated for this type of Grahini. So yes, you can. Yashimadu is licorice. Yeah.
Just in like a tea form, or actually in the tablet?
No, the same powder with Taka. Taka is a medium, so yeah, you can have it as a powder with Taka, or you can have, ideally you kind of want to do it with honey, but sometimes if there's too much of that burning, the honey can just make it worse. So the best medium for that is, again, the Taka.
One last question is about the tongue. We talk a lot about the coating, but when you have somebody with this kind of 12 times a day, you'll see the scalloping and malabsorption. So would it be, at some point in this month, let's say, would you assume that you would start to see some more clarity around the sides as well, a more subtle effect of
in her tongue, the first follow-up, I got to see her. The second follow-up we had over the phone. The first follow-up, she still had ama. It was still there, but it was considerably less than it was the first time. And she had the sort of ridges, or not the unevenness in the edge of her tongue. So what you start to see first, it's sort of like that thick coating, coming closer to the tip of the tongue. It starts to regress. And also the thickness starts to reduce. So instead of it being like a thick yellow, it just comes back to just a white and not so thick. It almost looks like if you scrape it, it'll come off, that kind of thing. Whereas the thick yellow one is like gumpy, big fat layer. Yeah.
Did you then follow with the medicated ghee for this case?
After the second month,
Okay.
after the second month, where now the bowel evacuations are down to a day, they're fully formed bowels, they're solid, they're no longer even semi-solid, they're solid bowel evacuations, and she's having a very good, healthy hunger now, and she's digesting her food very well. And also there were multiple factors that has also improved her health at that point after the second follow or the completion of 2 months. Then I asked her that now you can start taking ghee. So I didn't ask her to take the medicated ghee. I still kept her on the same. She's still taking Ajamuda Chuna and Sakra, but she's just using like a half a teaspoon of ghee in her food now. So she's adding that into her food three times a day. So and so in this process, before the first follow-up, she went to a conference and met someone else and another Ayurvedic doctor. I don't think he was a doctor. I think he was, like you mentioned, a Western doc who has learned about Ayurveda, and is also using the term of an Ayurvedic doctor, but actually a conventional medicine doctor. And he said that, you should probably do panchakarma. That would work better than what you're doing right now. So she sent me an email to ask me, what should I do? This guy told me that I should do panchakarma and it would be better than what we're doing. So I said, I didn't want to discourage her and I didn't want to go into negativity again. So I said, it's really up to you. If you would like to do that, then you can do that. The reason I didn't ask you to do that is because I feel like her strength and her condition was so severe that she cannot handle a cleanse. She cannot handle, that extreme nature of panchakarma. Her body she would end up with severe reactions to us trying to do panchakarma, because if she can't even handle drinking orange juice or drinking lime and water or even hot water, how can we expect that we're going to give her snehana and swedana and do a virechana? It would just go haywire. It's a complete contraindication. So though classically it says that you should do virechana, before it says do virechana for this condition, they say do amapachana, then do ghee, then do this. So if someone opens up the book and goes directly to treatment for grahani, the first thing they're going to actually see is do virechana. However, before that shloka, there is a prerequisite to that. So not having read the whole chapter, it's very easy for us to think, oh, let's start off with the virechana. So what he was saying wasn't wrong, but it wasn't the appropriate time. In the line of treatment, you can't start off there because she's not ready for that. So I told her that, what he told you isn't wrong. Classically, what he's saying in the classical text, it is there, that you are supposed to do that. However, you're not ready for that yet. So then she also responded, she's like, the thought of doing a virechana right now just makes me cringe.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's what she said. Their exact reaction was,
I'm finally going.
Yeah. So
Would you advise her to keep doing the Takra 3 times a day forever?
No.
So when will you tell her to stop?
I think, probably by the next month she can taper off because she needs it, but we don't stop at cold turkey even then. She can taper off, so she can just. And I think the last time I did tell her to reduce it from 3 times a day to 2 times a day.
So which meal would you cut first?
You could do, you could cut it off probably breakfast, depending on how she feels. Like if she wakes up feeling hungry, then she could do that. I think I told her she can stop taking it in the nighttime, and she can have her ghee. And she's been doing great with that. And she loves the fact that she can have tea now. So she's having ghee now with her meals. And
if you did do the licorice, what dosage would you do? So I have a client I've already told her to do licorice, but
it depending on how bad it is. As you said, you kind of do baby steps. So you start off with like a half a teaspoon. And then if they're doing good with the half a teaspoon, then you can increase that to 1 teaspoon.
And you're saying half a teaspoon in the 1 cup?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes.
So if you're doing that whole big thing, you could do a tablespoon.
Yeah, so what you usually do is you add the powder in just before you drink it.
That's what I was just going to ask you. So if you're storing that for the day, you make the takra, you just leave that, and then you bring your herbs with you. And
you can. That's what she used to always have, like. And you have a little container, a tiny little container, in your bag or in your briefcase or in your purse. And you don't have to have the exact measurement, like a measuring spoon of a half a teaspoon. You get any regular spoon that we eat, not the big tablespoon ones, but the regular spoon. And that's considered a teaspoon. So a half of that is a half a teaspoon. So
would it be bad to put the powder in before you went to work?
Not necessarily. You can. I mean, it's okay. It will sediment to the bottom. so you're not sure exactly of the dosage that you're getting. That's the only thing. Like as you saw when we made it, a lot of the heavy it did sediment. So, but if you're putting it in as you're taking your 1 cup, then you know exactly how much is going in at each time. As opposed to if you add it in the whole big batch and the first cup you take from the top, and it doesn't necessarily have, and by the time you get to the bottom, it's fully concentrated. So to keep a little bit of consistency in your dosage, it's better to add it in at that time. Okay. So this was our golden child.
That's a great.
Yeah, it was a great case. It was a great case. And I always used her as the example because even truthfully speaking, I also did not expect it to go this well. I really didn't. But I was very happy. So that's why I keep telling her, I'm like, I really can't take credit for this. Just you know what you know, and you tell it, and you kind of put it out there, and you put it in the universe. You just let it be. You can't. You really have no control over how it's going to go.
She was motivated. though.
Yes.
That was a huge part of this, I bet.
Yes,
Yep.
absolutely. It was absolutely.
There is something about being ready.
Yeah.
Well, you know, this goes to the other pieces of what you should and can be doing as professionals in this field, is that, you know, doing workshops and giving them support and getting them into a sangha of people that are excited about being healthy. You know, all of that is super important, you know, to reinforce people's forward progress and to be able to make life changes that at first look kind of hard, but then you're around people. And, you know, part of what we do every time we're together is they all get together in their little groups, you know, their assigned groups, and they share and talk about their funny experiences. And she was like the center of her group, boy. But also very respectful of everyone else. But she's funny. And anyway, it just goes to the holistic nature of what we do. That it isn't just about Rahmi, right?
Yes,
And
absolutely.
that was a symptom of all those things. She had 2 marriages that didn't work and whatever else was going on there. I think she needed community, she needed love and support, she needed to be excited about something. So, you know, our work is all of those things, you know, and the more you can share and have workshops and get people coming together and give them a little something to feel positive about and show, you know, progress with. We have so much fun when we get together. We all look forward to our weekends together. Our last one is this weekend. It's going to be sad. And, but all of us feel that way, you know. Oh, what's going on now? And the whole group is like this, you know, and our group in Boston is like this too. It's just, so, you know, besides the one-on-one consultation, the work that, you know, we're here to do is really share even more than that, you know, kind of thing. This was just a beautiful example of it. It was a kind of perfect storm, you know, of everything. And she had the 3 of us.
Yeah.
Plus her little sangha people also really love her.
Yeah.
Now, you know, so it's
So she feels loved.
Yeah. And she's
you met her. She was one of your volunteers, Lisa. One of your volunteers at the conference.
She was one of my.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. I'll have to read that.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really.
And she signed up at the conference to continue studying with the school.
Wow, she's a powerhouse, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she is a powerhouse. Okay, when you said Lisa, her name is Lisa, I'm like, that's really cool.
You met her too because
Yeah.
you're a volunteer.
Yeah.
That's really, we're not supposed to say names.
Yeah. No, but
Yeah,
yeah.
that's
But it's good now. Now you can, after hearing all of this, you got to see the effect of like after she's happy. She's happy.
It's interesting though, because when you know a little bit, you know, not about her issues, but more about her dosha, you know, it's explains a little bit about personality and who it is with. Yeah, very cool. I hate to do this, but we're gonna go too, because I just don't get you to.
Yeah. No, we're, I guess, you know, we can't really go into much more. Do you have a question?
No, I just wanted to comment, when I hear stories like this, I've had this personal experience with some of my health issues in my life, and I've had many. And I always had a difficult time wrapping my own head around rebirth and reincarnation and stuff, but I feel that we get the opportunity now, I got goosebumps, to be reborn in the here and the now into a new life when this happens. And I have this conversation with people, and you know, they go through the fire and they come out on the other side, like as you talk about this woman, she's been reborn. In this incarnation, she's had the opportunity to be reborn. Now she's doing it all differently. And what's better?
Yeah.
Better.
So true. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Then, like I said, I can't take credit at all for I was just one of the many tools that really helped. But the work that was done here was completely her. And so that's why I told her, I'm so proud of you because you did this, you know. So she said, so does this mean that we need to keep following up? I'm like, that's up to you. I don't think you really need it. But it's up to you if you want. You want to call me with questions, go ahead. You know, you want to talk about Ayurveda, feel free to talk about Ayurveda. But I don't think you really need much more after this. I think you got it, you know. But she did this. She completely committed, and she took the effort and the energy and the commitment, and it was a commitment, but it was a commitment to herself of what she wanted to become. Yeah.
Oh, she marched right over to the Indian grocer immediately when we talked about Ajwain on the break, because we're right in the Indian district. She went and got her Ajwain powder, and she was ready. She really forced the issue of doing the chakra that weekend.
Oh yeah, we made it that weekend. That was it.